Hi, welcome back, everyone. We have Sonia back for another
Yay!
episode. We've been missing her. She's been out having so much fun without us. And it's so great to have her back on for a really great topic today.
Thanks for having me back.
So today we're kind of for a lot of our girl paddlers in the community, we're at the time of year where we're wrapping up. We're gonna start putting things in storage. It's too cold to be paddling anymore for a lot of us. The holiday seasons are right around the corner, so unfortunately it's time to hang it up for a lot of us. So maintenance tips is what our topic is for today, and I know it's so sad. When we're doing maintenance and we're getting ready to put everything up, we want to make sure that we're extending all of our gear. That way we can get it back out and get back on the water as soon as possible next season.
This is pretty important, and I'll explain why for myself, particularly during as we go through some of these topics. But yeah, it's a pretty important thing to do. That I think a lot of us, you get to the end of the season and you're just depressed putting your gear away, and you're really like, I really, can't be bothered, but I think it's important that we do some of these things. So, and it's really not hard. A lot of these things are pretty easy. So I need to be better.
I think we could all do a little better at it because, it is like once you start getting into the not fun part of paddling, you don't want to really put a lot of effort into it. But what's a real big bummer is getting to the start of paddle season again, getting your stuff out of storage and realize that you have to replace half of it because you didn't do a good job putting it up in the
Yeah.
first place.
Yep. Totally agree.
So do your future self a favor. Follow these tips. We're gonna jump right into it. And for Sonia, she's on the road all the time, so she's the perfect person to talk to us about this today because she has got to find all kinds of creative ways to put things up for the season and make do with the space she's got. And also, when you're traveling to a bunch of different places, there's certain things that you got to do to take care of it. And starting that off is making sure that you're cleaning everything.
That's a kind of important one, and I think during the season we tend to neglect a little bit. I mean, when I say we, this I know there are some of us who they do all the things really well and clean their boards, but then there's those of us who tend to be, less. You get to the end of the day and you may just rinse it off quickly. But I think the first thing to make sure you're doing is clean your board or your kayak or your canoe after every adventure, and it's for so many reasons. One of it, which is just keeping it clean and keeping some of the stuff off. The other is that you don't want to be transporting if you're going from one place to another and one lake to another or river to a lake, that you're not transporting any kind of microorganisms or any kind of algae or fungi that would, it is not present in the next place you're going to. And I found this recently when, as Bobby Ann mentioned, I'm up in Alaska this season, and when I crossed the Canadian border into Alaska, the Alaskan, I'm not sure what their actual name is, but they do like, it's like the wildlife people. They came to our vehicle and said, are you transporting any vessels? And I said, yeah, I have an inflatable paddleboard. So I had to take it out and I had to unfold it, and then they inspected it, and then they actually rinsed it off with a solution to get it clean, because they want to make sure nothing's being transported from the lower 48 or Canada into Alaska that they don't currently have up here. So that was important. And they said, "Oh, when did you last clean it?" And that, well, the last time I used it was in Wikiwachi in Florida back in March, I think. So, and I could not remember if I'd rinsed it. So I need to be more vigilant about doing that. But for storage, any time of the year, whether you're still paddling or you're putting it away for the season, cleaning your board, giving it a good thorough cleaning using mild soap and water. Use a brush sometimes, get in some of the nooks and crannies. I know with my kayak, I have a lot of ridges that stuff gets into. So if I just rinse it off, there's always gunk in the little ridges of the kayak. So I have to get a brush in there and clean that out. And then making sure it's completely dry. One of the challenges, as Bobby had mentioned, I'm on the road, is making sure I can dry my board out before I'm folding it back up and putting it away. Otherwise, it's going to get moldy. So I have to make sure I'm doing it on a day or a couple of days where it's sunny and everything can dry out really well. But yeah, a couple of things is making sure you clean it off with mild soap and water, use a brush, get through into all the nooks and crannies, get into the cockpit of your kayak as well, because a lot of stuff will grow in there, or into kind of any of the storage areas. and then just, use a rubbing alcohol if you really need to get some of the tougher stuff off. But I think it's pretty basic. Just a good maybe Dawn soap. I use Dawn soap for almost everything to clean. It's like if it works on little animals, little birds, then it's going to work on your boards.
That's a really good point with when you're looking for what to clean with. You don't want to use anything that's too harsh for your equipment because it can be very degrading. Like you don't want to use any harsh like floor cleaning equipment or anything like that because that's going to take off a lot of the varnishes that are protecting your equipment. It can help break it down if it's sitting in storage and things like that because if you're not properly rinsing those chemicals off, they're just going to continue to eat away. And like I said at the beginning, you'll get to open your equipment back up and get ready to use it, and it's going to be eaten away or, dry rotted and, just unintentional damage to your equipment just from using the wrong kind of cleaner. So, diluted soap, gentle soaps. Also, you'd mentioned like using a scrub brush. I have gotten to where I use Scrub Daddies for everything. I don't know if you guys know what that is,
With the
but
little
it's like a
holes.
smiley, yeah, it's like a little smiley face sponge. But when it's dry, it's more like it's rough and you can kind of get the harder parts of things that might be like on the bottom
Mm.
of like hiking boots or stuff like that. But when you get it wet, it's softer and it's not damaging like maybe if you're using a bristle brush or something like that. And then they have a Scrub Mommy, which is like in the same product line, but it has like a really, really soft side on it. Anyway, not sponsored. I just really love Scrub Daddies. If you
I have a
guys have
couple
ever
of them
watched
too.
Shark Tank, I saw them
Yeah.
on Shark Tank for the first time. It was like obsessed when I saw them in stores for the first time, and that's like
Hmm.
all I use for everything. So,
Yeah, they're so cool. Yeah, we didn't touch on wetsuits too. I know a lot of girls
mhm.
are using wetsuits towards the end of the season or at the very beginning of the season. I think something to keep in mind there is also using a very mild shampoo or some other kind of mild soap. But most of the tips we got was from women who are using a mild shampoo seems to work best. Make sure that is thoroughly dried though before you store it, and don't turn it inside out because you'll be storing it potentially was still wet, so and it'll grow some mold. So make sure it's store it, fold it flat, use a mild soap, and make sure it's thoroughly dry before you store that away. I have pants that are wetsuit material. We'll have to do the same thing. I have some little booties that they take forever to dry. The booties because there's not a lot of air circulation, but yeah, I just put them in my shower and hope that they eventually
Yeah.
dry out. So
Oh, that's that's a good point too. Is when you're drying things out, make sure that you're drying them in a proper spot. You don't really want to dry everything out in the sun because that's going to like kind of crisp everything up and cause more damage. Even though it is outdoor equipment, when you're like undrying things like that, it can kind of like really
sucks all
shorten the
the
life.
moisture out. Yeah, I noticed that with my paddleboard, but when I'm drying that out in the sun, then it does get very quite crispy on the upper layer. So yeah,
Yeah, especially porous equipment like your dry bags, your wetsuits, anything that you want to just extend the longevity of. Try to dry it like in an open space, like your garage, a bathroom, something like that, where it's getting some airflow, but it's not getting fried by the sun. So,
yeah, good
um,
point.
yes. So I guess that is a good point too, is like when we're getting ready to start cleaning everything or after we've cleaned everything, before we start rolling everything up to store them, make sure that you're checking for damages. You don't want to increase any small things that might grow worse once you've stored it. So if you have cracks in your boards, if you have cracks in your paddles, holes in your suits, this is a good time to either do repairs or mark things down, throw things out that you're not going to use next season.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways to do is just do that thorough inspection, patch anything that needs to be patched. One thing I do try to do is remove any kind of bungees that have a metal hook in the bungee because that may turn into a rusty situation when just general humidity and moisture gets into, especially with my paddleboard, gets into the bag over the course of the season, at the end of the season, and I've noticed a little bit of rust appear on the decking. So yeah, just remove any bungees that you need to, and make sure that they're also still elastic and that they have stretch and that they're not like dead, and that you need to replace them. So yeah, replace anything that looks like it might be fraying, especially something that's safety related. You don't want to have anything on deck that is not going to save your life if you need it to. So make sure everything still functions well.
Yeah, we talk a lot about that with PFDs too. Is like check your PFDs. Like, are you going to need a new one next season? Check your straps. Safety equipment is the most important. So make sure that you don't have any holes in anything. And so
That's
this
actually a
is
good
just
point about, sorry to jump in, about PFDs before we move on from there. That I actually have inflatable PFDs, two of them, one for waist and then one that I wear when I'm kayaking. Make sure that the little chambers that are basically when they hit the water, they explode so that the air pumps up the inflatable. Make sure those are still within their expiration dates and that they still function, or replace any that you don't, that are out of date, because you don't want to, take something that's out of date on your next trip and find it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, a lot of this equipment, whether it's your PFDs or anything else, any safety equipment is going to have a manufacturer's recommendation on it. So be sure to check that. Expiration dates are a really, really big deal with safety equipment. Even with things that are like small safety equipment, having air horns or pepper spray or anything like
Whistles,
that.
yeah,
Yes,
yep.
all of that is going to have a manufacturer's recommendation. So please, please, please check that. And there's a lot of ways that you can extend the life of these things, especially when you come to your vessel, like waxing, coating, your hard vessels, like your inflatables are a little more easier. You just got to make sure that they're clean and dry, and then you can kind of roll them up. But your hard boards and your kayaks, those are going to need some extra layers to make sure that they're not completely drying out or cracking until next season.
Yeah, and I think typically, I mean, every brand has a different recommendation, so we don't want to kind of state here's what you should be doing, but just see what the brand of board or brand of kayak or canoe that you have, see what they recommend. Similar to a surfboard, putting a layer of wax on the bottom will just help. Where with the hull, it'll just kind of help it glide better, disperse the water better. So, and it'll help it just kind of finish it so that it lasts a little bit longer. But especially with like fading, UV fading, things like that. So just see what your recommendation is from your manufacturer, and kind of go along those guidelines.
When you're getting ready to decide on what kind of coatings that you're going to be choosing, like the type of material is going to make a big difference too. So make sure that you know what your vessel's made out of, because they might need special treatment before you put them away. And especially because if you're talking about a wood canoe and then you're talking about like some kind of like fiber,
Fiberglass.
plastic, yeah, fiberglass, kayak, those are
Yeah.
completely different treatments. And
Yeah.
some of these finishes that go on these, especially if it's some kind of artificial material, some of the finishes have like very specific types of like chemicals and things that you can and cannot put on them. So be sure to look into that, know exactly what your vessel's made out of, because that's going to make a big difference of the lifetime of your vessel. And we definitely want you to be able to use it for a long time. So
Exactly. Yep. Perfect.
and also the environment. That was just one thing that I meant to actually mention during the cleaning portion. Like the type of environment might also determine what type of extra cleaning processes you need to do. Because if you're in salt water, that's going to be some little extra treatments that you might have to take to get into that. Because salt gets into everything, especially after it's dried out. You may feel like it's clean, but wait till you dry it out and then go back over it again and make sure that you've gotten all the
Crusty.
salt of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you will definitely know it coats everything. It's just like sand or glitter. Like it's once it gets into stuff, it's like almost impossible to get out sometimes. Cleaning, storing, making sure that you're doing your repairs. And then we're getting to the part where this is probably the most important part, is proper storing. You have a lot of creative ways that you have to figure out how to store things. You want to jump into that one?
Yeah, I'll get it started. I mean, the first is like with my kayak. My kayak is currently outdoors, just for lack of storage space. It's a hard core kayak, so I can't just fold it up and put it into my RV that I live in. So it's currently sitting outside at a property on some like stands, and I have a tarp over the top. What I did do though is make sure I don't have the tarp totally wrapping the entire kayak, because then I'm just going to create a mold situation, a mildew situation. So I've left it where it's just covering the top so that there's still airflow coming in from the bottom, preventing water from penetrating from the top, but allowing air to get in from the bottom. So just creating a cover per se. Look at the way you're storing something, where you need to store it. Do you need to store it inside, make sure it's fully dry before you do that. If it's outside, make sure you have some air circulation for it. Don't put things on top of, like boxes or other equipment on top of your vessels. That's just going to create some warping over time, potentially, if there's like heat or anything else that happens as well. So make sure that it's got no direct sunlight, it's got some kind of cover, and that you don't have other things sitting all type of on top of it. I think that we have a new partner that you're going to talk about, that I am really excited about, because I am going to be going home to our property in Florida and ordering one of these, because I'm super excited about this one.
Yes, this is a great segue because I think that is the one thing that a lot of us maybe don't think about is like it was the beginning of summer, you got excited, you bought a bunch of new equipment, you did not consider what you were doing with all of that equipment once you got to the end of season. So this is a really great partner. It's called Store Your Ward. They're a company out of Virginia. We love Virginia, so US company, and they provide a lot of really cool storage equipment. They have kayak racks, they have sup racks, they have canoe racks, very specific equipment for whatever type of vessel that you have. And then also they have extra storage bins and straps and all kinds of other stuff for your equipment and gear that goes along with the specific vessel. So you can really customize it to your space. There's roof racks to hang from the top of your garage. There's outdoor racks. If you have multiple vessels, they have larger options, smaller options. Pretty much anything you need to be able to store some kind of water sport vessel, they've got an option for you. So we are an affiliate with them. This is not sponsored for us to talk about. They are an affiliate for us, though. And so if you use our links that we're going to put in the podcast description, we get a little from that, helps us keep the podcast going, helps us keep the community free, and also helps you out finding some really helpful equipment.
Yeah. I am so stoked for this. So I'll be shopping shortly.
Yes.
And their prices aren't, ridiculous. I have looked at different storage options in the past, and many different sports warehouse type places have options too. And even like Lowe's and Home Depot, I think, have some options for storage. But this is a
Mhm.
full, all encompassing, many option type of place that you can order from, and their focus is storage.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm super excited about this and can't wait to see what solution I can find. I think I'm going to end up with, for my kayak, probably the ones that go up and store it onto the roof of the I have a storage shed, so I can put it in there. Perfect.
Ah, that
Yeah.
is perfect. And that on that point, I really do love that you talked about, you might be able to find little storage hangers or something like that at Lowe's or Home Depot, but these are specific, like very specific to the type of vessel that you're using. So it's meant for that. It's not just like a one size fits all for you can just hang anything here. Like it's created for a kayak, it's created for a canoe, it's created for a stand-up paddleboard. So it's really going to fit your needs on that. And on the topic of price, like these are not things that you have to buy every season, unless you upgrade and you bought one for two kayaks and now you have six kayaks. But these are one-time purchases, and you're going to be able to like have a storage solution for every season moving forward. And it's going to help you take care of your equipment and make sure it's in good shape for the next time you get it out. So
Exactly.
very
Exactly.
excited
Yeah.
about that one. Like I said, you'll find all of that information in the show notes for you. And I think that's all the tips that we have for this. We've kind of covered everything to make sure that, you guys are keeping gear and your equipment in good shape for the next time that you need it.
One of the biggest tips, I think, is, and I really need to adhere to this better, is it's so much easier if you're cleaning everything during the season as you go, versus kind of leaving it to the very end of the season. It becomes a big chore. It's a small chore multiple times a year versus just one big one at the end. So that maybe help people. Maybe I need to tell myself
Yeah.
that more often.
I know it, especially if you're like the type of person who kind of tends to paddle in the same areas all the time. You don't really think about it as much. It's like I'm like very hyper aware of it if I take my kayak from one area to the other, because, like you said, invasive species are a thing. You don't want to bring any fungus or coral or anything of that nature into a new space. But I'm like, oh, I'm just going to the same lake like every weekend. It's not that big a deal. But yeah, no, I think we could all be doing a little better on it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
one of the things I've noticed, because I've been looking at different places to paddle while I'm up here in Alaska, is there's a lot of lakes that have blue-green algae, which, you are gonna pick up pieces of that potentially on your board. I know, and I'm not sure if everybody else is aware of this, but that is extremely toxic to dogs. Will kill dogs quite quickly. So we've had to keep our dog out of a lot of the lakes around Alaska. But it's something to keep in mind that you're potentially carrying things like blue green algae from one place to another. You want to make sure that's all rinsed off before you store anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it all just comes down to I feel like every tips episode that we do, it really just comes down to being super aware of your environment. I mean, that's, safety and being aware of your environment no matter where you're at. Like
Mhm.
that's really the center of pretty much everything we do in
Yeah.
paddling. Thank you so much for bringing that up because I do think maybe a lot of times we're only thinking about our equipment and we're not thinking about like the actual environment around us. We're not thinking about how that's affecting like our health, our pets' health, especially if you're taking your pets out on the water. That's a really great parting tip. We always like to partner these episodes, these kind of tips episodes with a blog post. So we have an in detail blog post that we'll be including with this as well. We hope that you guys have had an incredible paddle season so far. We're jealous of everyone who's going to keep paddling past this point of the year for all of you lucky ducks in warm environments, or maybe not even. We have a lot of girl paddlers that are still going like
We
deep into
do.
the icy times. Like
Yeah.
we got some Canadian girls out there that do not care about cold weather. They are dressed up and they're going to keep going. But for those of you who are packing it up, we hope you've had a really great season. Stay in the group. We're going to continue to have really great conversations over there. And if you're looking for more tips on storage or you have a certain piece of equipment that you want to ask about, throw it in the Facebook group. That's what it's for. We have so many helpful girls that are in there that are more than willing to give you your opinions or let you know, what they've tried before. So
Hmm.
we're going to keep the
Yeah.
conversation going over there. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.